Hello and welcome to our session. My name is Dylan Gerald, Associate Director of Admission at Washington and Jefferson College. And I'm joined today by Nicole Shannon and Nicole Focaretto, who are also at W&J. Our session is on accountability, trust, and transformation on a team. We also have the distinct pleasure of being joined by Martin Aucoin from Belmont Abbey College. And Martin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Dylan. As Dylan said, my name is Martin Aucoin, the Vice Provost and Dean of Admission at Belmont Abbey College. And in case you're wondering what I'm doing here at SACAC with this team of folks from Washington and Jefferson College, I've had the distinct pleasure of being on a team and experiencing accountability, trust, and transformation with these folks. So specifically, under Nicole Focaretto's leadership at Belmont Abbey, Nicole's been one of my mentors, but also, for in several roles, my direct supervisor. I appreciate this opportunity to collaborate with them, and having experienced what it's like to be on both good teams and those teams that need quite a bit of work. I can honestly attest that this is going to be some useful tips and kind of knowledge and insight into what a good team looks like, because I know these people here on this call, and they have also experienced the amazing things that can happen when a good team is in place and when accountability, trust, and even transformation exists. So thanks.
So there are many challenges to being on a team, many of which Martin just mentioned in his introduction, and a lot of them are listed on the screen right now. But at W&J, as a team, we have been able to overcome pretty much all of these in one way or another over the past couple of years and really learn to work together. We get a lot of good work done, and we're able to cheer each other on along the way. And sometimes that's just as important as getting the work done itself, being able to celebrate with your teammates.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot easier to be to even do the work whenever you have a team that's supporting you. As Martin said, we've all been there. We've had some bad teams set in place, so it's just amazing what can happen when people are just clicking together instead of just saying that they're on a team and actually living that life and being on one. So I hope this is helpful for everyone.
So with that being said, we just wanted to share this quote with you from one of our favorite authors. And primarily, I wanted to express the importance of everyone moving in the same direction and why this quote resonates specifically with me. For those of you who know me, I love the sport of rowing. That was my sport during my undergraduate career, and I continued to participate in rowing as an adult. And so I learned many of the fundamental team concepts from my experiences in being on a rowing team, being a part of a crew, and understanding what that success feels like. So with that being said, many of these concepts, many of these thoughts that we're about to share with you all go back to everyone moving in the same direction with the same goals together. And there's truly value in that.
So in Patrick Lencioni's book, he talks about the 5 dysfunctions of a team and what that looks like. I think one thing that's really important whenever you're trying to build a team and really have everyone firing at all cylinders is to identify and talk about what these dysfunctions are openly as a preventative measure, so people understand what it looks like and what all of these different things mean. And really prevent any of these dysfunctions from happening.
So here's what we're going to cover over the course of this presentation. A high functioning team, what it is, what it looks like, how to build it. We're going to talk about setting goals, managing up and owning the role, primarily owning your role, and then building trust with new leadership.
So at WNJ, one of the things that makes us a high functioning team is that we operate as several units, but one team. So you can see the example of our 4 separate units right there on the screen. We have our counseling team, our visitor services team, operations team, and financial aid team. We all have separate goals. We all have individual goals, but then we have team goals as well that we're all, all 4 teams are working for together. And we all collaborate on a very regular basis. So we have daily enrollment team meetings. We have our staff meetings once a month. And then we also have regular and semi-regular training sessions among the different teams as well. So, our financial aid team trains our counseling team on financial aid, and our visitor service team is working with operations on a daily basis too. So it's just great to see the 4 different entities working together on a regular basis. We also work together as enrollment managers. So every single person on our team knows all of the goals and understands all of what we're doing basically. So we're all on the same page. We're all working toward, bringing in the class, and it's really helpful to have an entire team of people who are all really dedicated to that same goal.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to add to that is that, one of the big things that you can do to help break down barriers and break down silos is to continually share information. For example, I'm the athletic liaison for the admission team. So anything that deals with athletics goes right to me. And I'm constantly sharing information with all of our coaching staff and with all of the admission and financial aid counselors as well about what's happening with both of our offices. So I think, sharing that information, working together and having the responsibility of one person, it just helps to make things smooth. And it helps each person focus on what their individual strengths are. You'd be amazed what can happen whenever someone who isn't meant for a role is forced to do that, but to do something for their job responsibility when they have no business doing that whatsoever. So identifying strengths and leaning on each other to really be a high functioning team is super important.
So I mentioned this a little bit on the last slide as well, but we set both individual and team goals, and our team goals are shared with everybody in the admission house, everybody on the enrollment team. So we're not only working toward the same goals, but we're able to cheer each other on and celebrate with one another whenever we do have those wins in our office, which is, just all around great energy on a daily basis for our team.
And the goals that we set for the team are extremely collaborative. We actually all come up with them as a team. And we use the SMART goal model, but within the SMART goal model, we also identified what specific goals we wanted to have and what things we wanted to improve in our team. So those were quantifiable goals. We wanted to have numbers. We really like to focus on professional development, on team culture, and on collaboration. So those are some of the specific goals that we set within our SMART goal parameters. We also used historical data to set some of the quantifiable goals as well, but all of these have the 5 C's of a strength-based team model in mind. So all of these goals are things that we can trust. They're things that we've come to a consensus about. Everyone on the team has buy-in and they're committing to them. We made them all together and they're being communicated and talked about regularly. In each of those monthly staff meetings, we always pull up the SMART goals that we made. If you aren't sure what a SMART goal is, this is what they are. Some of our more experienced SMART goal friends will actually use smarter goals, which actually include evaluate and review, to constantly be analyzing and making sure that our goals are in line with what our actual objectives and to make sure that we're hitting them.
Great. So I want to talk about managing up, and I think this is a point that is useful and important no matter no matter what role you served in. Everybody has a supervisor. Everybody has too much work to do. Everybody. You need to be managing up. I mean, I managed up in my role as vice provost. Just as much, if not more so, that I was managed up in my role as director of admissions, down to admissions counselor, even as a student ambassador. I mean, we're doing everything we can to get them, empower them to manage up. I think, when you look at different leadership models, I tend to like the kind of servant leadership model, which focuses on how the leaders of an organization are actually can be the most separated from the population that they're trying to serve. In our case, that's the students. Look at how many people are in between us and the students. Sometimes when a student's taking a tour, they're right in front of an Abbey ambassador at Belmont Abbey. Always want to be looking at those unique needs of each individual, but also when you're in those roles, you want to be communicating with your supervisor. Collaborate. You need to use everybody at your disposal. Nobody is ever going to be working on a project alone. Everybody, if you've established those goals, hopefully everybody knows what role they play in order to meet those. So, whether you're the student, the staff member, the manager, everybody plays a part. Hold the team accountable. Again, that's one of the things with having those goals. You're only as strong as kind of your weakest link. So look out for each other. Ask people to hold you accountable to the same level, if not more so than you're holding them accountable. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I always, talk to people about, how are you coming along with this project? And it irks me when people say like, oh, I'm good, I got it covered, or don't worry about it. And then they go and like that day kind of scramble to kind of get up to speed so they have something that they can present and actually share real information with me. Tell it like it is always. If it's not done yet, still try to put a positive twist on it and say, you know what, with all the success that we had last week with completing this, like that project and this project, I haven't yet quite gotten around to providing the information you're looking for, but I'll be able to get that to you within this prescribed timeline. Be authentic. I mean, that's what people want. They don't want the yes man. They want the person that tells it like it is. And if they don't want that, then, they should, and sometimes you'll need to work to create a culture where everybody's not just communicating to college leadership exactly what they want to hear, but communicating authentic and real communication that tells it like it is in a way that will be, received by your supervisors. So over communicate, always, be sharing kind of where things stand. You never want to surprise supervisors with some big mistake, but rather you want to be, communicating trends, positive or negative, and say, these are areas for improvement that we have. And so if there's some big, glaring mishap, they can kind of follow the trail of how we got there. You don't just, fall behind hundreds of applications or admits overnight. There's a trend that got there. And if you're not over communicating and informing of where you stand at every moment, then you're going to surprise some people and be pulled in for some rather uncomfortable meetings. So in your areas of responsibility, always be communicating what your needs are, areas for improvement, and, over communicate. If you don't have regular meetings scheduled, you should probably be scheduling some regular meetings, both with the people that report to you and the people you report to, just to touch base on a one-on-one basis to say, here's what I'm working on, here's where I'm at, here's what I need. is there anything else that I should be doing that I'm not? So here are some tips to managing up, and some do's and don'ts rather. Do get to know your boss, anticipate and jump in, imagine the bigger picture, don't manipulate, cover up, participate in office politics. What it comes down to for me, I think it's Cicero has a lot of writings on friendship, and he talks about, I think it boils down to like how to be a good friend, is to be like a really good person. Focus on yourself, improve yourself, become as good as you can be, and then you'll be kind of open to having good friendships. People will say, oh, you don't need a lot from me, you make a really good friend. That's the same kind of thing in managing up from my perspective. Focus on you, focus on your role, own your role, do the best you possibly can in knowing what you're responsible for, becoming the expert, and then you will kind of be in a place where you can manage up and help others kind of get up to your level if they're reporting to you, or push your supervisors to be able to provide what you need to be successful in your role. So I think what managing up comes down to, it sounds like you're doing it to other people, but the way you can effectively manage up is own your role, know your areas for responsibility, know your needs and the needs of the people that you serve, and be able to communicate that up to your supervisors. One thing that this relies on, and just to wrap that up, is that this can't exist. You can't manage up unless trust exists. So that's what Nicole's going to share with us next is trust.
So quite often when we talk about team dynamics, trust must be present. And everything that you're hearing from us today, we have very specific elements of how we implement that, how we get there, what we need to do in order to feel and experience the trust. And so I'm going to share some of the things that we've implemented. By all means, there are many other things that can be done and will be done, but we firmly believe that these are some elements of what have allowed all of us to experience trust on our team and trust in the workplace. So this specific slide speaks to building trust with new leadership. All of us are going to experience a new boss at one point or another. Some of us might even be the new boss. For example, like me. I've been a new boss at many institutions, and I've known, excuse me, that the responsibility and ownership tends to land on the shoulders of the new boss. Ultimately, you gain what you put out there. And if you see that there's an area that needs improvement on a team, you need to strategically and think through how to get there. So for teams that I tend to lead, I want to know who's on the team. And I also, not only for myself as a leader, I want the team members to know who's on the team with them. We need to figure that out. Whatever tool we use, as leaders, that's up to us. But there are so many tools out there. I have tended to use Myers-Briggs, sort of, it's a true blue tool, right? People understand it. Others understand the team dynamics around it. Some people have already experienced it, so it's easy. It's easy to really insert into a team approach. The Strengths Finder, that's great because there are so many elements. And even if you just want to focus on top 5 or top 10, the team members really get a strong sense of who to go to based on each other's strengths. Culture Index is something that's new for me and something that we use at W&J, not only to assist with team dynamics and professional development, but on the hiring side of things. When you have trust and you have a high functioning, high performing team, you tend to be very protective of that. And you want to make sure that you're welcoming team members to the team that are a good cultural fit. So the culture index tool allows for us to see not only how people behave on a job, but ultimately their own behaviors and their innate behaviors, along with energy units, how they think, how they're innovative, and their logical approach to scenarios and situations. So we have an idea before we even invite someone to an interview where they will fall among the team. Those tools are so instrumental in building that trust and talking about it so that everybody knows who is on the team. And then you need to take it to a different level. In order to continue upon that trust, you need to authentically want to spend time together. I mean, let's be honest, many of us spend more time with people that we work with than our own families and friends. And so it's really important to be able to insert that joy and keep things on a very human level. You can do that through many different ways. We do that through summer book clubs. We have, happy hours. Now they're virtual, but when we weren't under the COVID-19 pandemic conditions, we would do happy hours together, lunch and learn sessions. Whenever anybody would go to a conference, they would have things that they wanted to bring back and share with the team together. And we would do that over a lunch and learn. It's really important to have those regular check-ins with your manager and the employees. Really important, because that just reinforces the trust. That allows for the avenue to have that discussion together. Communication is key. During staff meetings, it's also important for all members of the team to be able to speak to what they're doing in order to understand how they're contributing. It's not just up to the leader. It's not just up to the middle managers to keep this work moving along. It's up to everybody. And that's part of owning the role and really a little bit of the accountability, right? So when there's accountability, that also builds trust. All of these things are interworking together in order to make things happen. Some things that we've done after meetings, we're sharing minutes with the entire team. After we attend a webinar, we're sharing notes with the entire team. Really important for all of us to stay up to date on our national trends and understand what that means. On another note, communicating what's happening internally with the enrollment team, with the rest of campus, and some of our external key constituents is important. So this year at W&J, we created an enrollment engager newsletter to share what's happening. During high anxiety times, people want information. I hear it all the time. We need to communicate. I want more information. And so we have to be proactive and get ahead of it so that the trust continues to live and we continue to grow together as a team to put out the good work that we're doing and make sure that everybody is aware of how things are functioning and what direction we're heading in. That newsletter alone has assisted us during this high anxiety time to make sure that the campus community has understood that this enrollment team, we're good together, but we're also good with the entire college community, making sure that everyone stays well informed, knows what's important to us, knows what we value, and how they can help in our efforts. It's really, really important. And I think Martin covered the managing up component of the presentation and how that ties back into trust and building trust. But ultimately, these are some things that you can take away and insert into your teams as well, because you have to have the how. You can't just talk about it. There absolutely has to be action taken, and you need to talk about those actions and why they're important to the team, so we can continue to do that work together. The ownership isn't just on the leader, it's on every member of the full team.
Right. And it's something that everyone has to have buy-in, and everyone has to take action to do that. I think you won't really understand what it means to be on a high functioning team until after you've seen that transformation. Um, that's often how it is, but teams transform for a number of reasons, and there's a lot of reasons for a team to do it. I think the biggest one is to be able to maximize the potential of each person with their own unique skills, talents, and abilities, and just create a high functioning team that meets and surpasses goals. Um, Organizations are always looking to gain something and get more productivity and more market share. But I think the real benefit of doing all of these things is to maximize people and foster those relationships.
Yeah, and I think transformation is one of those things that anybody that spends any amount of time in the field of admissions and enrollment management, you've experienced transformation. You've experienced it potentially for the good, or you've experienced bad transformation. I think it's really important, and that transformation be intentional. When it is intentional and planned, then it's almost always for the good. I think back to when I started as an admissions counselor at Belmont Abbey. It was the Monday after graduation, and I just kind of stuck around. We did not have the director of admissions and the VP kind of had made plans to move on to another institution in the spring just before I started. And I started, and there was interim leadership, and within a month or two, Nicole arrived as the executive director and later moving into the dean role of admissions at Belmont Abbey. And after the first year, my first year, I think I was the longest person that was serving in the admissions office. And to a lot of people, I think that sounds like scary, or that, oh my goodness, Nicole must have been like a hatchet lady that came in and just fired everyone. And, I can speak to, that's not what happened. Transformation happened. She started by pulling us into her office that first week and say, what have you been doing? In doing that, what have you noticed? Are there areas for improvement? And I still have notes from those meetings, because I think oftentimes Nicole would email me back and say, hey, here's what we talked about, just so you remember, come prepared to the next meeting with what you want to talk about then. And I can follow that timeline of transformation over those months and ultimately years, where it's not just there's a vision that's communicated. It's a shared goal across, the office that ties in with institutional goals and objectives. And then it's bringing people in, helping them identify, what their unique skills, talents, and abilities are, how that fits in with your own and everyone else's on the team's skills, talents, and abilities, how that fits in with the needs and objectives of what you're trying to accomplish. And then putting all those pieces together. But I think what it comes down to is leadership and trust, because if those things don't exist, then you're not going to bring the right people and the right skills, talents, and abilities to the table. So that's what, touch on diversity and realizing that no one person can accomplish what you need. And if you do bring all of these kind of unique pieces to the table, you can really transform for the better and go beyond, even what you anticipate, go beyond those goals, surpass them. I love kind of hitting a goal, but the thing beyond that is realizing potential that you didn't even know that you had. And that takes a team Even if it's a small team, I know we all have teams of different sizes and things like that, but there needs to be a leader that empowers people to recognize their skills, talents, and abilities, communicate with each other, leverage those, and you reach new heights.
So as a team for this presentation, we thought it would be helpful to wrap up with some just personal stories and anecdotes that we've experienced being on a good team. And if you remember one of the first slides that we showed, our examples are not being on a team with those, negative aspects, but being on a team with all of the aspects that you see right here on the screen currently. And I'll kick us off just by sharing that, we all have different strengths. And I know that Nicole spoke a lot to that when she was talking a few slides ago as well. But I know that when I need help with something that's not my, number one or number two or three, I know exactly who I can go to in the office to ask for help. Dylan mentioned earlier that we have different liaisons and different partnerships with other offices on campus and even offices internally with the enrollment team. So if I have a question about financial aid, I know that I can go to Dylan and he can float that up to financial aid for me. If I have a question about visitor services, I can go to Thomas, one of our senior assistant directors of admission, and ask him, and he can, work with his team and get me an answer. So it's really great to have a team where you know that you can go to people whenever you need to and ask for help and get that help in a helpful and positive light. It's almost like you're always learning from one another, and it's just really positive and makes coming to work a good experience because we truly are working together, every single day and helping each other learn every single day.
Yeah, and I want to share a quick little story. I think one of my favorite things about being on a team is that, occasionally, things happen. The ball gets dropped, someone forgets to do something, we all have too much work to do. Um, but, one of the best things about being on a team that's doing all of these things is that whenever you drop the ball, you have other people there that can help pick up the pieces. So I think, just people having your back and making sure that you're all working together towards the same goal is like the best thing. I love it.
And as I mentioned earlier, many of the things that I learned about team dynamics stem from rowing. And it's so important for everyone in the boat to understand the race plan. It's not just, the coxswain's job to understand that. It's everyone's job so they can anticipate, so they can know their responsibility with that role and why it impacts the entire team. So when speaking about enrollment and how we function as enrollment teams, I'm a firm believer that it's important for everyone to understand the strategy behind the why, where we're heading, and understand their role in order to really execute that plan. Of course, it's not a race plan, it might be an enrollment plan, but every person has a role on the team, and you need to understand the why and the strategy behind why it's important, and always circle it back to our own team values and what we value together. And those are some pretty high level things when it comes to a reward of being on a team. You're implementing what everyone values, and you're all moving in the same direction at the same time towards the same goal.
And when you have that empowered team in place to pass goals, and it, like I said, realize things that you didn't even know were possible. But there's a whole lot of other good stuff that happens too. And I do want to highlight that. I mean, I think some of these are listed here, like boost morale. I mean, doesn't it feel good to not have to do everything, to not have that pressure, but to see like other people that are totally different than you and have totally unique skill sets and talents, like, I don't know, offer praise in their successes, because that's something you could never do, but they're on your team, so you share in that success. So it boosts everybody's morale just to receive that affirmation, but also to be a part of something that you could have never done alone. Celebrating, I mean, celebrating these successes is so important. Recognizing, you know, how far you've come. I mean, make no doubt that like I wouldn't have joined on this presentation if I didn't think that I had been a part of one of these teams and had something to share. I mean, I have been a part of these teams at Belmont Abbey with some of the people on this call right now, and realized, you know, record enrollment growth. But celebrating each other, celebrating where each of you are in your careers and in your lives. And I think that one of the things the team does is promote a healthy work-life balance, so that, you know, you care about the good of your colleagues. You know, you want them to have good lives, not just be really successful employees, but be good people, good men and women, and you know, community members, and both on campus and off campus. And one of the ways that we can do that when there's a good, effective team in place is that you're taking the time, because nobody's overwhelmed, hopefully, or at least that balance is shared among staff members. And then you can take that time to continue to grow yourself personally, you know, have friendships, you know, have community and family life and things like that. And celebrate those successes too. I mean, we love getting together and saying, you know, somebody's buying a house or getting married or having a birthday. I mean, these are small things, but like, let's not forget that your colleagues are people too. And I think that that's one thing you realize when you're on a team, is that, you know, you continue to get to know each other and see each other in new lights every day when you're accomplishing all of these things that you didn't even know were possible. So celebrate, keep morale high, recognize both professional and personal accomplishments. And it ends up being not just, you know, you're not just successful and hitting goals and surpassing goals and being like an awesome enrollment manager. You're becoming like awesome humans too. And it's a lot of fun, and it can be a lot of fun. And that's one thing that I just wanted to highlight, and that I hope you don't miss out on, is that when you have it, you have it. And it can be really, really fun.
We just want to thank you for joining us. We hope that you were able to take something away from our presentation, whether it be a quick win for your team or something that you can implement long-term for your team. Even hearing some of our stories, I hope they resonated with you and you were able to, you know, reflect on your time on a team as well. But we hope to see you all in person someday soon, hopefully. And we just want to thank you for joining us for our presentation.